Rain poured relentlessly over New York, heavy droplets striking the sleek glass windows of an expensive black car. The city's neon lights blurred through the downpour, casting a hazy glow over the bustling streets. Nathan Sterling sat in the back seat, silent, his sharp gaze following the raindrops streaking across the glass. At 36, he was the CEO of Sterling Financial, a man who had built an empire with discipline and control, wealth, power, respect. He had it all, and yet he felt nothing. Nathan had never believed in love. He learned that lesson early. His parents had once sworn they would be together forever, but love wasn't enough to keep them from destroying each other. Their sweet whispers turned into bitter arguments, and by the time he was 10, his mother had walked out of their lives, leaving behind only a short letter and a fractured childhood. Since then, he had understood one simple truth: love was an illusion, and trusting someone only led to disappointment. And then, on this cold, rainy night, he saw her. A young woman sat curled up beneath the awning of a closed cafe, soaked to the bone, yet holding her head high. Her eyes scanned the streets, not with desperation, but with quiet determination. The traffic light turned green. His driver waited for instructions. Nathan should have ignored her, continued on his way back to his penthouse. Instead, his voice cut through the quiet hum of the car. "Stop the car." The car rolled to a stop at the curb. Nathan stepped out, unfazed by the cold rain soaking into his tailored suit. Water dripped from his hair, but he paid no attention to it. His focus was entirely on the woman in front of him. Her wet clothes clung to her slender frame, her soaked hair plastered against her skin, yet she still held herself upright, her gaze sharp and unwavering. She noticed him instantly, eyes locking onto his with guarded wariness. "You are going to freeze to death out here." His voice was calm, matter of fact. She shifted slightly, as if trying to make herself appear stronger. "I don't need help." Nathan glanced at her trembling fingers, the useless fabric of her soaked sweater. "I think you do." She said nothing, lips pressed into a firm line, refusing to admit it. Nathan sighed, a rare flicker of patience in his tone. "Get in the car. I'm not asking for anything in return, but you can't sit here all night in this weather." She hesitated, studying him as though trying to read his intentions. Finally, with no other choice, she gave a small nod. Nathan opened the door, gesturing for her to enter first. Once she was inside, he slid in beside her, shutting the door before signaling the driver to continue. The car was silent. Nathan cast a glance her way. "What's your name?" She hesitated for a moment before replying. "Elena." "Elena what?" Her gaze shifted toward the window, voice quiet. "Elena Brooks." Nathan nodded, committing the name to memory. "Where do you live?" Elena clenched her hands together. "I don't have anywhere to go." That answer shouldn't have mattered to him. It shouldn't have made any difference, but somehow it did. He leaned back against the seat, considering something for a brief moment before speaking again. "I need a housekeeper. If you want, you can work for me." Elena turned to him, eyes widening slightly. "Are you serious?" Nathan simply nodded. "I'm not in the habit of helping people, but I need someone to keep my place in order, and you need a job. If you agree, you can stay at my house for now." She stared at him for a long moment, as if searching for some hidden motive behind his words. Finally, she gave a slow nod. "Fine, but just until I find something else." Nathan smirked slightly. "Suit yourself." And just like that, on a rainy night neither of them would soon forget, two strangers unknowingly stepped into each other's lives. The car pulled up in front of a sleek high-rise in the heart of New York. Elena stared up at the towering building, hesitation flickering in her green eyes. She had never stepped foot in a place so luxurious before. Though she had agreed to Nathan's offer, she still couldn't quite believe she was here. Nathan didn't say a word, simply leading her inside. His penthouse was vast, immaculate, and breathtaking, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city skyline. Yet despite its perfection, it lacked warmth. It felt more like a meticulously curated showroom than a home. Nathan tossed his keys onto the counter and turned to her. "Your room is down the hall, last door on the left. You can start working in the morning." Elena nodded, clutching the strap of her bag a little tighter. "Thank you for giving me a chance." Nathan simply nodded before heading into his office without another word. The next morning, when Nathan emerged from his bedroom, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. He stepped into the kitchen and found Elena bustling around, preparing breakfast. She looked completely different from the rain-soaked woman he had found the night before. She glanced up, a bit hesitant. "I wasn't sure what you liked for breakfast, so I kept it simple." Nathan's gaze swept over the neatly arranged table. It had been a long time since he had a proper breakfast. He pulled out a chair and took a sip of the coffee. Not bad. As the days passed, their shared living arrangement settled into an easy rhythm. Elena worked diligently, keeping the apartment organized, ensuring meals were ready on time. But more than that, she unknowingly brought a quiet change into the space. Nathan started noticing small details. The living room lights were always left on when he worked late. A cup of coffee was always waiting on the table in the morning. And most of all, the way Elena constantly kept herself occupied, as if stopping would make her feel lost. Little by little, Nathan realized he had grown more accustomed to her presence than he had ever intended. As time passed, Nathan realized that Elena's presence in his apartment wasn't just about convenience. Initially, he had only wanted a housekeeper to keep things in order, but little by little, he began to notice the subtle changes she brought. The once sterile apartment now had traces of warmth. Fresh flowers appeared in a glass vase on the dining table. The cushions on the couch were no longer perfectly arranged, but slightly more lived in, as if someone actually belonged there. Small things, insignificant on their own, yet they made the space feel less empty than before. Nathan also started noticing Elena's little habits. Every morning she scribbled something in a small notebook, and in the late afternoons she often sat quietly reading. When she was deep in thought, she had a habit of twirling a strand of hair around her finger. And every night, no matter how busy she was, she always took a few minutes to sit by the window, gazing out at the city, as if searching for something. One late evening, Nathan walked past the living room and saw Elena fast asleep on the couch, a book still open in her hands. In sleep, she looked smaller, her usual guarded expression softened. For a brief moment, he hesitated before slipping off his jacket and gently draping it over her. He stood there for a moment longer than necessary, watching her, before silently retreating to his room. For the first time in years, his apartment no longer felt quite so empty. Life between Nathan and Elena gradually became more natural, no longer just a formal arrangement between an employer and his housekeeper. At first, their exchanges were brief, limited to tasks and schedules. But soon, conversations stretched longer. They talked about small things, the type of coffee Nathan preferred, the book Elena was halfway through, or even just the weather that day. One evening, after a long day at work, Nathan was surprised to find Elena still awake, sitting at the kitchen counter with 2 cups of tea waiting. She looked up at him with a small smile. "You look exhausted. I made chamomile tea. It's good for sleep." He hesitated for a moment before pulling out a chair and taking a sip. "I don't remember the last time someone made tea for me." As the days passed, their shared space no longer felt like 2 strangers coexisting. Nathan started coming home earlier, no longer burying himself in work until midnight. They had dinner together more often, sometimes watched the news, and even on nights when they sat in silence, each occupied with their own tasks, the presence of the other felt oddly comforting. One evening over dinner, Elena casually asked, "You don't seem like someone who believes in long-term relationships." Nathan set his fork down, his gaze darkening slightly. "I don't." She tilted her head, studying him. "Why not?" He was quiet for a long moment before finally speaking. "My parents once loved each other, but in the end they hurt each other more than they were happy. When love fades, all that's left is bitterness." Elena didn't respond right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but certain. Not everyone is like them. That night, as Nathan lay in bed, her words echoed in his mind. For the first time in years, he wondered, could he have been wrong? Nathan wasn't the type to dwell on someone else, but ever since that moment, he found himself thinking about Elena more than he should. He noticed the little things, how she focused when she worked, how she carefully folded laundry, how she gazed out the window with that faraway look in her eyes. One day, in the middle of work, he recalled a past conversation when she had mentioned her passion for cooking and her dream of opening a small bakery. That afternoon, instead of heading straight home, Nathan made a stop at a small bakery that was up for lease. It didn't take much time to finalize the paperwork. When he returned to the penthouse, he placed a folder in front of Elena. "What's this?" she asked, frowning at the documents. Nathan shrugged, as if it wasn't a big deal. "A bakery. I leased it for you. If you want a chance to start over, this is it." Elena stared at him, completely speechless. "Why would you do this for me?" Her voice trembled slightly. Nathan held her gaze for a long moment before answering, his voice calm but firm. "Because I want to see you happy." Elena stared at the documents in front of her, her heart pounding so loudly she could hear it in her ears. A bakery. A chance. A dream she had long given up on, now sitting right in front of her. But more than the papers, what truly overwhelmed her was the man standing before her. A man who always claimed to be cold, detached, yet had done something so incredibly thoughtful for her. She looked up, her gaze meeting Nathan's piercing blue eyes, but this time there was something different in them. The distance that had once been there had faded. "I don't know how to thank you," she murmured. Nathan studied her for a long moment before speaking, his voice steady. "You don't have to. I didn't do this out of obligation. I did it because I wanted to." Elena inhaled sharply, her chest tightening with emotions she wasn't sure how to process. "Why?" Nathan took a slow step closer, the space between them shrinking. "Because I care about you, Elena," he said, his voice low but unwavering. "More than I should." Elena's breath caught, her heart skipping a beat. She didn't look away this time. For a moment, it felt as if the world around them had disappeared, leaving only the two of them standing there. But just when the moment felt almost too heavy, Nathan tilted his head slightly, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "If you really want to thank me," he said, his voice softer, warmer than usual, "make me a really good dinner." Elena blinked, then let out a quiet laugh, light but genuine. "So, this is all about food?" Nathan shrugged, though the sincerity in his gaze never wavered. "Maybe. Or maybe I just wanted an excuse to spend more time with you." This time, Elena didn't need to think. She simply smiled and nodded. Elena stood in the kitchen, fully focused on preparing dinner. She chose a simple yet elegant menu. Steak with red wine sauce, creamy garlic mashed potatoes, and a fresh salad. She wanted this meal to be perfect, not just because Nathan had asked for it, but because she truly wanted to do something special for him. She couldn't deny it any longer. He was no longer just her employer. Meanwhile, Nathan quietly set the table. He wasn't the type to fuss over details, but tonight he wanted things to be different. He arranged fine porcelain plates, aligned the silverware perfectly, and after a brief hesitation, he retrieved a scented candle from the cabinet, placing it at the center of the table alongside a vase of crimson roses. To complete the setting, he uncorked a bottle of his finest red wine. When Elena stepped out of the kitchen carrying the plated dishes, she was surprised to see the beautifully arranged table. She glanced at Nathan, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You did all this?" Nathan shrugged, pouring wine into their glasses. "Of course. We need to celebrate." "You got a new job, didn't you?" Elena chuckled, settling into her seat across from him. Dinner unfolded in a warm, effortless manner. They talked freely, no longer restrained by formalities. Nathan found himself captivated by the way Elena's eyes sparkled when she laughed, the way her hair cascaded over her shoulder, the way she made him feel something he hadn't felt in years. When they finished eating, they cleaned up together, standing side by side at the sink. As they washed the dishes, Nathan's hand accidentally brushed against Elena's. She looked up at him, and in that moment, time seemed to slow. He was drawn to her, as if caught in an invisible force pulling him closer. Without thinking, he leaned in, pressing a soft kiss against her lips. Elena didn't pull away. Instead, she kissed him back, deepening the moment between them. Nathan lifted her effortlessly into his arms, his lips never leaving hers as he carried her into the bedroom. That night, they surrendered to the emotions that had been building for so long, losing themselves in each other, sharing a passion that neither of them could deny. The next morning, Elena woke up in Nathan's arms, a soft smile playing on her lips. He was still holding her close, as if afraid she would disappear. When Nathan's eyes finally opened, he murmured, "Good morning." She laughed softly, brushing her fingers over his cheek. "Good morning." They spent the entire day setting up the bakery. Together, they brainstormed ideas, tested different pastry recipes, and carefully curated the perfect menu. Nathan helped her choose furniture, making sure every detail was just right. As he watched Elena excitedly plan her future, he realized something. She hadn't just found her dream, but he had found his too. And it was right there, beside her. After days of preparation, Elena's bakery was finally ready to open. She stood outside, gazing through the large glass window at the cozy interior. Soft golden lights, small wooden tables, and a display case filled with pastries she had carefully crafted. Her heart swelled with emotion, excitement, nervousness, and most of all, gratitude. Opening day was better than she could have imagined. Customers walked in, curious to try her treats. Elena barely had a moment to breathe, but she loved every second of it. Nathan, though not particularly interested in sweets, sat quietly in the corner, watching her with a rare expression of pride. After a long, successful opening day, Elena leaned against the counter, letting out a deep sigh of relief. Her first bakery had officially launched, and everything had gone better than expected. Customers loved her pastries, and more importantly, she had never felt this happy before. Nathan sat across from her, pouring 2 glasses of wine. "Two new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. Elena smiled, clinking her glass against his, and to a brighter future. A comfortable silence settled between them as they enjoyed the moment. Then, Elena set her glass down, her gaze shimmering with something different. Taking a steady breath, she looked straight at Nathan. "There's something I need to tell you." Nathan raised an eyebrow, waiting. Elena bit her lip before finally saying, "I'm pregnant." For a moment, Nathan froze completely. His eyes widened, processing her words. But as the realization sank in, a brilliant smile spread across his face. "You? Really?" Elena nodded softly, happiness shining in her eyes. Without hesitation, Nathan jumped up, rushing over to the pastry display. He grabbed a powdered sugar donut and hurried back, dropping to one knee before her with a playful smirk. Holding up the donut as if it were a sparkling diamond ring, he said, "Elena Brooks, you walked into my life on a rainy night and gave me something I never knew I was missing. Now you're giving me a family. I don't want to wait any longer to make it official. Will you marry me?" Elena laughed, tears of joy slipping down her cheeks. "You're really proposing to me with a donut?" Nathan shrugged, love shining in his eyes. "For now, the real ring comes later." Elena smiled through her happy tears, gently cupping his face. "Then, yes." 1 month later, they stood together in a breathtaking garden, surrounded by flowers and loved ones. As Nathan gazed at Elena, his expression was filled with nothing but love and devotion. When it was his turn to speak, his voice was steady yet filled with emotion. "Elena, you walked into my life on a stormy night, and at that time I didn't believe in love, in forever, or in the idea of happiness shared with someone else. But you changed all of that. You filled the empty spaces in my life with warmth, laughter, and love. You gave me not just a home, but a reason to believe in something greater than myself. Today, in front of everyone we love, I promise to stand by you, to protect you, and to love you fiercely, endlessly, and without hesitation for the rest of my life." Elena's eyes glistened with unshed tears as Nathan slipped a dazzling diamond ring onto her finger. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan didn't hesitate. He pulled her close, capturing her lips in a deep, passionate kiss. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with love, laughter, and the family they were about to build together.